Good evening. Welcome to the Kern County Planning Commission regular meeting of August 11th, 2022. Madam Chairman, please call the roll.
Commissioner Ashley?
Here.
Commissioner Judge? Commissioner McGiffney?
Here.
Commissioner Skidmore? Here. Commissioner Sprague? Mr. Hall?
Here.
Mr. Murphy?
Here.
Ms. Hoover?
Here.
Ms. Slayton? Here.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. We have a translator. Would you please come forward, please?
Si hay alguna persona presente que no habla inglés, solamente español, hay audífonos en la mesa de atrás para que puedan participar en la reunión esta noche. Gracias.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is commission member announcement or reports. Do we have any commission member announcements or reports? Seeing none. Approval of minutes. Do I have a motion to approve the previous minutes?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Ayes have it. Chair votes aye. Motion is approved. Item D, cases withdrawn, request for continuance. We have none according to the agenda. Item E, consent agenda. Mr. Murphy.
Thank you, Chairman Giffney, members of the Commission. So these are items scheduled before your Commission which are being recommended for approval by staff, and the applicant has been informed of any special conditions and has no objection. The hearing on these items may be expedited if no member of the Commission or audience wishes to comment or ask any questions on the case. So this evening we have 5 cases on the consent calendar. The first item is case number 2. This is SPA number 94, map 101, zone change number 202, map 101. Our applicant is J&M California Land Company, Inc. by McIntosh and Associates. This project is located on the east side of Allen Road, specifically at 4642 Allen Road in unincorporated Bakersfield area. This request is 2 actions. The first is to amend the land use element of the Western Rosedale specific plan from map code SRR to map code HR on an approximately 4.55 acre parcel. And the second action is a change in zone classification from A1 to R3 or a more restricted district on 4.55 acre parcel. The staff recommendation is to advise your Commission to recommend the Board of Supervisors to approve the specific plan amendment as requested, adopt the resolution of recommended findings, and enact ordinance approving the zone change as requested as set forth in the attached draft resolution. The next item on consent is case number 3. This is GPA number 3, map 157, GPA number 7, map 158, GPA number 3, map 205, and GPA number 3, map 206. Our applicant for this project is Northern Orchard Solar PV, LLC by QK. There are 2 sites for this project. The site 1 is located on the north side of South Lake Road, approximately 2.5 miles east of Taft. And Site 2 is located south of Highway 166, approximately 6 miles east of Maricopa. The project has 4 specific actions before your Commission. All of them are relating to amendments to the circulation element of the Kern County General Plan, specifically to eliminate the road reservation within the areas identified and summarized on your agenda. The staff recommendation is to advise the Planning Commission to recommend the Board of Supervisors to approve the amendments to the circulation element of the Kern County General Plan as recommended by staff and adopt the suggested findings as set forth in the draft resolution. The next item on consent is case number 4. This is CUP number 9, map 23726. Our applicant is Stephen Kiosis by DeWalt Corporation. This project is located at 760 Circle Drive within the Lebec area. The action before your Commission is a conditional use permit to allow the operation of a rescue sanctuary animal facility for hooved animals and accessory ground mount solar for the operation and for the adjacent residential use. The staff recommendation is to approve conditional use permit as requested in accordance with the recommended conditions and adopt the suggested findings as set forth in the draft resolution. Case number 5 this evening. This is specific plan amendment number 7, map 146, specific plan amendment number 4, map 147, zone change case number 42, map 146, zone change case number 12, map 147, inclusion within the boundaries of Ag Preserve number 18, map 146, and then Ag Preserve number 18 inclusion for map 147. The applicant for this project is the Nature Conservancy. This site is located on the south side of Highway 58, approximately 415 feet west of Woodford to Hatchby Road in the unincorporated Keene area. There are a couple actions before your commission this evening. There's general plan amendments. So there's a number of general plan amendments to the land use open space conservation element of the Keene specific plan. The requested amendments would amend existing residentially or government identified property to map code 8.5 or 8.5 2.85 or map code 8.5 2.3 on various parcels within the specific plan boundaries. The project includes a number of zone changes. The purpose of the requested zone changes are to rezone the land from residential to A FPS and similar districts. And then the project also includes inclusion of approximately 1,438 combined acres within the boundaries of the Ag Preserve number 18 within zone maps 146 and 147. Again, the Nature Conservancy has acquired these properties and it's their intent to use this land and change the designation so that they can use it as a conservancy purposes. So that is why the actions are before your commission to get rid of the various residential and other zone properties. The staff recommendation is to advise your commission to recommend the Board of Supervisors to approve the general plan amendments as requested, adopt resolution and recommended findings, and enact ordinance approving the zone changes as requested, and then approve agricultural preserve inclusion as requested and adopt the suggested findings as set forth in the attached draft resolution. And finally, the last case on the consent calendar this evening is case number 6. This is General Plan Amendment number 3, map number 64-6. Our applicant is Patrick Marr by GPS Services. This site is located at 2412 Jerry Avenue in the Lake Isabella area. The action before your commission is an amendment of the land use, open space, and conservation element of the Kern County General Plan from map code 5.3 and 6.2 to map code 5.2 or a more restrictive map designation on a total of 35,719 square feet on 4 separate parcels, the purpose of which is to facilitate a future lot line adjustment. The staff recommendation is to advise your commission to recommend the Board of Supervisors to approve the general plan amendment as requested and adopt the suggested findings as set forth in the attached draft resolution. That completes the reading of the consent calendar tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Murphy. Are any member of the commission wish to pull any of these items off consent? Are there any members of the audience who wish to comment on any of the consent items? Seeing none, do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Call the vote.
3 ayes, 2 absent, motion carries.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Mr. Murphy, do we have notice right to appeal?
We do. The only case where this action is final is for case number 4. So this is the only item in which this right to appeal applies. For projects where the commission action is final, those actions are subject to an appeal to the Board of Supervisors by any interested person, and no development proposed by any application may be authorized until after the final date of appeal. An appeal may be filed with the Kern County Planning and Natural Resources Department located at 2700 M Street, Suite 100 in Bakersfield, with a filing fee of $540 on forms available at the department and on our website. That filing must be made within 14 days of and including the date of this hearing. There is no right to appeal for projects in which the Planning Commission action is advisory. If no appeal is received, the action taken by your commission is final.
Thank you, Mr. Murphy. Next item on the agenda are public presentations. This portion of the meeting is reserved for persons desiring to address the commission on any matter not on this agenda and over which the commission has jurisdiction. Speakers are limited to 2 minutes. Please state your name and address before making any presentation. Do we have any presentations from the audience? Seeing none, Mr. Murphy, go on to our public hearings here, new cases, or excuse me, our only case.
Thank you, Chairman Gibney. Case number 1 this evening is on the docket to be have a staff report presented to you before your commission takes public testimony and makes a recommendation. With that, Ms. Cindy Hoover will be making that presentation.
Thank you, Ms. Hoover.
Thank you, Chairman McGiffney. The item before your commission tonight are part of a larger staff-initiated housing element implementation project that we've brought to you before. The project was continued a couple of times in the beginning, and then your commission considered a series of proposed staff-initiated changes to various land use designations on 61 parcels throughout unincorporated Kern County at the June 23rd hearing. The proposed changes were brought forward as 37 separate cases. Your commission took action on 24 cases, recommending the Board of Supervisors approve 18 cases and deny 6 cases. At the request of staff, you continued 11 cases to tonight's hearing to allow staff time for further review and analysis. 1 case was withdrawn prior to your consideration on the 23rd. The items before your commission tonight include consideration of 9 of the 11 cases that were continued. 2 cases have now been withdrawn from consideration. The purpose of the proposed staff-initiated changes is to meet the county's commitment to allocate 214.14 acres of R3 zoned land to implement programs 2.2.2 and 2.2.3 of the adopted Kern County housing element. Those programs are intended to correct shortfalls in housing identified in the Regional Housing Needs Assessment, or the RHNA, for the 4th and 5th planning cycles. These actions are necessary and would establish land use suitable for future high-density residential projects. As a reminder, the actions do not include any proposed development. However, this project will implement the strategic goals of the adopted Kern County housing element. Further, the county will not be the entity developing these sites. Any development on site would be initiated by individual property owners. Prior to the June 23rd hearing, staff received direction from the State Housing and Community Development Department that in order for the rezoned parcels to contribute towards meeting the county's housing needs, the zone district must include a minimum density of 20 dwelling units per acre. To ensure compliance with the provisions regarding a density of 20 units per acre, staff will be bringing forward for your consideration a proposed change to Chapter 19.22 of the zoning ordinance to establish a minimum density within the R3 zone district. That amendment to the zoning ordinance is scheduled for consideration by your commission at the August 25th hearing. Based on HCD's direction, staff requested that several parcels over 10 acres in size be continued to tonight's hearing to allow staff time to conduct additional analysis and determine if build-out of the entire parcels at 20 units per acre would still be compatible with surrounding land uses and still meet the intent of the project. Upon further analysis of the sites, staff has determined that 4 of the 11 parcels would be compatible with surrounding land uses with a reduced size. Therefore, staff has identified a 10-acre portion of the parcels in cases 17, 21, 28, and 31 that would be suitable for a zone classification change to R3 and associated general or specific plan amendments. Figures showing the location and extent of the proposed changes are in the map section of your staff report. 2 of the parcels, cases 1 and 18, have been determined to either be incompatible or not consistent with the housing element criteria or state law due to location, size, or scope, and have been withdrawn from consideration. The remaining 5 cases have been determined by staff to continue to be compatible with surrounding land uses and consistent with the housing element and state law as originally proposed. A summary of the parcels can be found in Table 1 located on page 5 of your staff report. A detailed description of each site is located in Attachment 2 of your staff report. Each site has a number in the first column of the table. This corresponding number is used as a reference for commenting and recommendation purposes. Again, within Table 1, each site has been separately identified using a number found on the far left column, meaning your commission has the authority to make recommendations on each site individually if you choose. Final recommendations could be to approve, provide a modified approval, deny, continue, or refer back to staff for further review. During the course of processing this request, staff has received 16 separate comments on the cases before you tonight. Since the June 23rd hearing, 2 comments in support of Case 8 and 1 comment in opposition to Case 8 have been received. All other comments in your staff report were received prior to the June 23rd hearing. Comments in opposition generally cite concerns such as increased traffic, increased crime, concerns regarding special status species, and general opposition to high-density development, and are similar to those comments heard and responded to at the June 23rd hearing. Staff continues to believe that existing development standards and local and state regulations address these potential impacts. Subsequent to preparation of the staff report, staff received 2 additional comment letters which have been handed out to you this evening. The first comment letter was submitted by a property owner of Case 8 who provided support for the zone change. The second letter was submitted by Leadership Council for Justice and Accountability and the Public Interest Law Project and provides information on state law and fair housing law. Staff has made all efforts to ensure that sites proposed for rezoning fully comply with all state housing laws, are consistent with the general and specific plans, and are compatible with surrounding land uses. The need for the development and preservation of adequate and affordable housing in Kern County has dramatically increased in recent years. Clearly, there is a need for more housing opportunities countywide. In general, the state of California has enacted housing laws that are built on the notion that housing is the foundation for life and opportunity. As a reminder, more than 3 million California households pay more than 30% of their income towards rent, and nearly 1/3 pay more than 50% of their income towards rent. Overall, home ownership rates are at their lowest since the 1940s, and California is home to 12% of the nation's population, but a disproportionate 22% of the nation's homeless population. In Bakersfield, recent released data shows that the vacancy rates are at 1.55%, which are among the lowest rates seen locally in decades. And while staff believes there are many factors that contribute to these statistics that are far beyond the control of any local jurisdiction, and while today's actions may not solve the identified housing crisis, it is a step in the right direction and will ensure the County of Kern is doing our part. Staff has conducted additional analysis on the 9 sites before you tonight and believes all of these sites are compatible with surrounding land uses and consistent with state law and local regulation as proposed. But as I mentioned earlier, your commission can provide individual direction for each proposed site. Staff recommends these 9 remaining sites be recommended for approval as requested. If approved as recommended by staff, these 9 sites would contribute 107.24 acres towards the 214.14 acres required for the 4th and 5th housing element planning cycles. That finalizes my presentation at this time. I'd like to ask Mr. Murphy if he has anything he would like to add.
Thank you, Ms. Hoover. Just 2 things, and to make sure that our record is clear, I know that she had mentioned it, but just so we have the numbers in front of us. Cases number 1 and cases number 1 and 18 were withdrawn by staff. So again, there's no action for your commission to take on 1 and 18. The cases where staff is recommending a modified provision based on what we did from your previous hearing, specifically are related to cases 17, 21, 28, and 31. And then cases 8, 11, 15, 34, and 36, staff is recommending approval and is the same recommendation we had originally brought forward to your commission at your last hearing. Only 2 things I'd like to further note is that all of these maps are available. If you'd like to discuss or see any graphics for any particular site, we'd be happy to do that, and we're prepared to show you those. And then the only other item I'd like to talk about is because the case number 8 is the only case that generated some additional comments that we had not received prior to tonight's hearing. Again, we had comment letters in support from the project applicant, and we had some comments in opposition from, I believe, a neighbor. I would just like to reiterate for your commission, the existing general plan for that site is 5.1/2.5. So from a general plan perspective, it is already designated for high density residential development. The existing zoning is MP-FPS, so that's a mobile home park. The county doesn't generally manage mobile home parks. That's actually something that has to be done through the state. Our recommendation to change that zoning from MP-FPS to R3-FPS actually allows the county to have more control in terms of development standards regarding the ultimate development that would be constructed there. And then also, just as a side note, one of the comments that staff receives all the time regarding the Rosamond area is that we have a lot of mobile home parks in that area already. So when we evaluated this site, we believe that the change in zoning on that site to R3 actually helps to enhance the area as opposed to leaving it designated with the existing mobble home park designation. So those are the other things I'd like to add, and with that, that believes the completion of staff's presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Murphy. I just had one quick question before we open to public. Does this amount of property put us in compliance?
Chairman McGiffney, We're close. You know, ultimately, your recommendations are recommendations, and so the final determination will fall on the board. We have those numbers. If you recommend approval, as staff is recommending, we're within 10 to 15 acres potentially. Ms. Hoover, can you remind me? It's close, and it becomes down to some determinations. I would note you had a project that you just recommended approval for immediately before this that is also R3 that will be added to the overall designations. It was not on this agenda because that applicant had been much further along in the process and was moving along. So we have one or two other projects that your commission has taken action on that we will evaluate as well. But I can tell you that this gets us relatively close. Did you have the numbers specifically?
I do have the numbers. If the board approves and denies as recommended by the Planning Commission, and if the cases before you tonight are approved, that would bring us to 202.54 acres. That would leave us about 12 acres short.
But did the amount tonight that we approved put us over the threshold?
Well, we have an additional 4 would be added to that, 4.55. And then again, I think you've had one other case that we've looked at. So again, we are relatively close, and we'll be bringing that forward too.
Okay.
So the total acreage would be more than that, but as we discussed at the last hearing, we're only allowed to count 10 acres per parcel. And so with those 10 acres per parcel, based on what we have brought forward as of right now and based on your recommendations to the board, we would still be short just a couple of acres.
Would we be bringing down more projects to the commission to be in line with the state requirements?
Chairman McGiffney, possibly. We would also further engage in some discussions with HCD. You know, part of the reason that, you know, I understand their reasoning behind 12 acres and why they think that's sufficient. You know, we would also have some conversations with them about in Kern County, not everybody has access to sewer systems and some other things. And so, you know, we have to build sumps. So sumps take some of that acreage. So, you know, we would hope that the state would understand, but we would have that conversation if ultimately we needed to, or we would continue to look for some additional land that we might be able to bring forward as well.
Is there a deadline date we have to have this done by, Mr. Murphy?
We are actively working to make sure that we get this done by the end of this calendar year.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for clarifying. I wanted to be sure we had everything on the table here. Understood. Thank you so much. Now, if there are any members of the public who would like to speak to any items or any of the cases here, please come forward, state your name, to be limited to 2 minutes.
Good afternoon, Commission. Richard Walker, agent for applicant of case number 8. Just want to take a moment to thank both Craig Murphy and Cindy Hoover, as well as your commission, for your ongoing assistance in completing this much-needed county-initiated upzoning as needed for the housing element update. I'd just like to enhance what Craig had mentioned with respect to existing zoning for case number 8, and that is currently the MP FPS zoning is not compatible underneath the paramount high-density land use designation. So this effort is rendering that site in compliance with the general plan, in addition to the efforts for the housing element update. That's all I'd like to add.
Thank you. I had a question about, I think this is the project, I had some comments about being on the Highway 14. That is the properties you're talking about, right? They're adjacent to Highway 14?
It is, yes.
In view of that, in some of the locations and information I had, what exactly has been done to look at the noise quotient of that?
Well, it's interesting that you mentioned that. The conditions of approval associated with vesting tract map 7362, which is immediately north of the case 8 site that we're discussing this evening, has gone through the tentative map process and is in the process of finalizing the final map, recording the final map. And as such, all of those conditions associated with noise have been complied with. It just so happens that while processing the vesting tract map for 7362, even though noise conditions were applied to the vesting map, by the time we got to the final map, those noise conditions were withdrawn by virtue of mitigation not being needed for noise in the area. So while it is a concern, the actual conditions at the site are such that noise is not in need of significant mitigation. One area also of concern is floodplain, which we had discussed with planning staff, and we acknowledge that there will be improvements with respect to drainage for these sites, but that it's for that reason why the applicant for tract map 7362 is the ideal applicant to implement this upzoning for the case number 8 site, because he has significant experience. In fact, he's processing a 178 unit multifamily tract as we speak, and is directly north of the case number 8 site.
Thank you. Any members of the commission have any questions for the applicant? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Are there any other comments?
Good evening, Emma de la Rosa with Leadership Council. On June 23rd of this year, the County Planning Commission held a public hearing to consider the Kern County Housing Element Implementation Program, which proposes land use designation changes throughout the county as a step towards county compliance with the Housing Element Programs 2.2.2 and 2.2.3. We write to the Planning Commission that its actions on the implementation plan thus far violate state laws that prohibit discrimination based on race, ethnicity, disability, and other characteristics, as well as the county's mandatory duty to affirmatively further fair housing by refusing to consider sites for high density development in areas that have high resources, and approving high density sites in areas that have lower resources and higher concentrations of poverty. The county has an affirmative duty to further fair housing in all programs relating to housing and community development. AFFH means combating discrimination and taking meaningful action to overcome patterns of segregation and foster inclusive communities free from barriers that restrict access based on protected characteristics. Your actions on the 23rd, at the June 23rd public hearing violate the county's AFFH obligations. The 6 sites the commission removed are all located in high resource opportunity areas in Kern County that are disproportionately comprised of white residents compared to Kern County as a whole. And 4 of the 6 sites removed are in regions with the highest economic outcomes. Conversely, 10 of the 18 sites the commission approved for R3 rezoning are located in areas designated as low resource areas, and 2 are located in areas marked for high segregation and poverty. Only 5 of the 18 sites considered that the commission recommended for rezoning are located in areas marked as highest resource or high resource area. In addition to violating the county's duty to FFH, approving sites for rezoning predominantly in lower income areas and areas of high poverty and segregation, and removing sites from consideration in higher resource and disproportionately white areas would violate FIHA and Section 65008 by perpetuating and reinforcing segregation and by prohibiting the development of multifamily housing at densities that qualify for public subsidies and or that are affordable to lower and middle income residents. The Commission's decision to remove sites for R3 high-density rezoning after receiving comments steeped in bias is inconsistent with the county's FIHA's obligations. The Commission should carefully review its FIHA obligations before making decisions regarding the remaining proposed cases for high-density housing. In the next planning period, 2023 to 2031, the state law will require the county to demonstrate that you are, in fact, affirmatively furthering fair housing. Rezoning sites throughout the county now, including in high resource areas, will improve the county's position regarding compliance with the 6th housing element. If the county eliminates the majority of sites for rezoning from areas with higher economic opportunity, it will be ill-prepared to meet its statutory obligations for its 6th cycle element. The county must consider rezoning sites for high-density residential housing in areas with higher economic opportunity, accounting for factors such as concentrated areas of poverty, affluence, and historical patterns of segregation if it wishes to rezone sites now that will provide an adequate land inventory for the 6th cycle element. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other comments? Seeing none, I ask our commissioners to if they have any questions or comments about the item at hand.
I have a quick question. Ms. Hoover, will you repeat the different recommendations for the numbers associated with what's on our list? So I know Mr. Murphy mentioned approval for some and then the other ones.
So we are recommending approval for 9 of the 11 cases. The cases 1 and 18 have been withdrawn from consideration. The remaining cases, I apologize. Cases 8, 11, 15, 17, 21, 28, 31, 34, and 36 are recommended for approval.
Thank you, Ms. Hoover.
And just to clarify, because I believe, Ms. Skidmore, you were asking 17, 21, 28, and 31, those are the 4 sites where staff reevaluated, and we are recommending approval, but that approval would be specifically limited to a 10-acre site as opposed to what was before.
Thank you. Yes.
That's why I think that's why I was kind of asking the numbers, because to
Right.
make sure we had everything clear. So thank you. Mr. Ashley, you have any questions? All right.
Yeah, I am comfortable moving forward if there's no other comments or concerns.
Is that a motion?
I will make a motion to approve items 8, 11, 15, 17, 21, 28, 31, 34, and 36.
And I will second.
Call the vote.
3 ayes, 2 absent, motion carries.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. That brings us to our final part of the agenda, adjournment. I have a motion.
So moved.
Oh, excuse me. Mr. Murphy, do we have to, I'm sorry.
Is right, Chairman Gifney, we do not. This was a recommendation. So for anybody watching, staff is anticipating bringing this project to the Board of Supervisors for their consideration at the September 27th general plan window.
Is that going to be for all the recommendations, not just these?
That would be for all of the cases that were considered regarding this particular housing implementation project.
So
Yes.
September, for the audience, September 27th is the date it goes before the board. Thank you. Now I need a motion to adjourn. Sorry about that.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.